Good evening, folks, and welcome to another edition of the Thursday night Ridgecrest Talk. I'm Al Huey, along with my partner, Robert Ironman, and our special guest again is Mr. Don Zadiva from the Water District. Thanks, Don, for being with us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, obviously, the big thing we wanted to know, since we were hammered with more conservation by the state, they wanted us to do initially, what was it, 20 or 25%?
Well, that was statewide.
Statewide.
But we've always been saddled with the...
But then they came back and said, no, you have to do 36%.
Right.
And along with the year before or years before, it was a 20% reduction.
20% by the year 2020 per Arnold Schwarzenegger's request.
Which we met early.
Which we met from 2007 to 2014. We reduced 20% on our pumping.
And so if you add the 20 to 36, obviously, they want us to cut 56%.
It's certainly challenging.
I would say that's near impossible. But anyway, so how did we do the first month, the second month of these new cutbacks?
Okay, the State Water Board is actually looking at, beginning in June, our residential, well, actually our total production. I got it mixed up there, but our total production. So for the month of June, we were at, we saw a 10.6% reduction compared to June 2013, which is the baseline year that the state is using. Again, they're using that because that was the year. Last year they implemented some restrictions because of the drought, so they wanted to compare it to a year prior to that. So again, 10.6% reduction, which was pretty good, but it wasn't 36%. Statewide in June, you may have seen in the newspaper that they reduced, statewide we reduced water pumping by about 27%, I think it was, 27,
Yes,
29%.
I saw that.
So statewide the results were much better. The governor had asked for 25%, and statewide that was achieved. The State Water Board, based on the results that were published, reported to them in June, has reached out. Of the 405 urban water suppliers that report to the state, 265 were within 1% of their goal.
Wow.
We were one of what's being called the Sweet 16. That
sounds like a good thing.
Yeah.
No, it's just referred to jokingly, but we were one that was more than 15% missed our target. And in fact, we were about 25%. So we missed it by quite a bit. As a result of that, the State Water Board has sent notifications, and we received one that they wanted a face-to-face meeting. So last week on Wednesday, I was called down to Riverside to meet with them. Basically tell them what our conservation program is. They had sent a list, a 3-page list of questions or bullet points that they wanted addressed. So we prepared responses to all their bullets, and I feel like we have a very good conservation program and a lot of outreach that we do. So we went down there, presented that. You know, they just wanted to know what it was going to be going forward. Is that going to be the trend going forward? And I was really pleased that in July our customers responded, and our water production was actually 29.4%.
Wow.
Below July of 2013.
That's
so significant to go from
yes.
10.6 to 29.4.
Yeah.
And they were very pleased. In fact, they commented how significant of an increase that was. And so overall, the tone was a good meeting. I was very pleased that they asked us, you know, what are we doing and what do we think we can do, as opposed to, you know, shaking a finger at us and telling us what to do. So we gave them ideas, and I haven't reported my board yet, so I don't want to go into too much detail right now. But we gave them ideas of what we felt we could do, and they listened. And then, of course, they have experience with other water districts as well, so they would build on the comments that we made and offer us suggestions. So overall, as I said, it was a good meeting, productive. I'm hopeful that we can build on the 29.4% that we had in July. Of course, that remains to be seen. We're not quite halfway through the month, but you know, the key is that these are the months that are the high water producing months, obviously during the summer. So we dug ourselves a pretty big hole that first month. So to get out of that, if we are gonna get out of it, we have to get out of it during these next couple months. So it could, after October or so, our pumping goes down quite a bit.
Considerably.
So yeah, so we'll see where it goes. But
Well, I would think 29.4. I don't know how you can't say that's one heck of an improvement.
I would agree, and I think in the state's eyes, if we could continue that and end up with somewhere close to that, I think we'll be okay. As you point out, on top of the 20% that we already achieved, and I did make that point to him. I brought down the statistics and showed him that we'd already achieved. We went from 9,123 acre-feet of pumping, I think, in 2007, to around 7,200 acre-feet in 2014, right about 2,000 acre-feet, which is significant. So, we have responded, and in fact, I think the district was proactive even before the drought got into its third and
There's
fourth
no
year.
question that the district has been. That's right.
That you can see in the pumping, it's declined, and that's a tribute to our customers. Getting the message out that we need to conserve water. And so
Well, one thing that you don't see anymore that I used to see pretty frequently is the water running down the gutter. That's a rare sight these days.
I think you're right, Al. I've seen the same thing. In fact, when we started in April with the enforcement actions, we asked people to report any issues that they saw, and this month we're actually seeing a decline in the number of reports. We had 73, I believe it was, in July, 73 reports that people sent via our website mostly on either people watering on the wrong day or watering the wrong hours or excessive runoff, those sorts of issues. So I think the word is getting out. It's been a challenge to get the word out to everybody, and we've tried to do everything we can in terms of mailers and website and Facebook and Twitter and all that. So, and I think some of it's word of mouth too. I think neighbors are talking to neighbors about this too. I think
Definitely,
that makes
yes.
sense.
We have one rental house that I think, and I don't know how it came about, but they got a notice on their door. Is that something that you guys have done?
When we get a report, again, generally through our website.
Before you answer that,
Right.
we have to take a break.
Yeah.
Okay, I know the routine. All right.
So join us right after the break. We'll be back with Mr. Don Zadiba from the Water District talking about water.
And welcome back to segment 2 of the Thursday evening edition of Ridgecrest Talk here on KZGN-TV. I'm Robert Ironman. I'm with my partner Al Huey, and this evening we are welcoming back Mr. Don Zadiba of the Water District. You were starting to explain something when we had.
About a notice.
You said something about one of your rentals
yeah,
got a notice on the door.
Got a notice on the door,
Right.
and so I presumed that was something that the Water District does.
Absolutely. When we get a report from the public that there's an issue, like as I said, either an issue with the time of watering, the day of watering, or runoff, we respond to it. And if we find that there's reason, we leave. If we can't contact them directly, we'll leave a notice on the door, and it's just an informational notice. There's
Right.
no enforcement. It just says, hey, it was reported that you're watering outside the hours or on the wrong day,
Right.
and we expect that people will take the action. Could be, sometimes when we get electrical storms, the timers default
Sure.
and it's a reset.
And it was exactly that. They called and said, clearly we're doing something wrong. What do we need to do?
Mm-hmm.
And so we explained to them, and so the problem went away. But anyway, I was just commenting on certainly the informational process to the customers is working well.
I believe so, and very few. I think since April 1st, we've had maybe over 200 of those reports to us. Very, very few have resulted in any kind of enforcement action, which would be the next step would be a formal letter saying that no corrective action was taken and you need to correct it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think word is getting out, and people are making a good faith effort to comply. And again, the 29.4 I think speaks to that result.
I think so, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm surprised. It's
When,
that high.
when we had Keith Lemieux, city attorney, in here a while back, I asked him a question about, well, gee, has the result of the court action in San Juan Capistrano had any impact on legal action? And his answer was yes. It's promoted a cottage industry of lawsuits against water districts.
And that had to do with tiered rates, right?
Had to do with tiered rates, right? And so I was just going to pass on the information that certainly, as in going forward, everybody has to be aware of how important that is for the tiered rates to be justified via cost of service.
Actual cost of the
actual cost of that, and you know, whereas in the past they just ascribed a rate that they felt would lead to conservation, and we now find that the courts have determined that's not appropriate anymore. And we also discussed with them about enforcement and also relative to what any household's target was. And I had mentioned for a long time, I think I've even mentioned it to you, that you know, you have two houses sitting right next to each other, basically the same square footage, same landscaping, but one of them has 7 people in it and the other has a retired couple in their 70s in it. Obviously the water consumption of those two homes is going to be dramatically different. And I was surprised and pleased to hear Keith say that some water districts are going to an individual per property kind of goal setting that takes all that into account.
Right. Yeah, I've read about some of that. It's not the easiest thing to do.
Yeah,
but
No, and it
imagine
seems
it'd
like it would be
momentous.
very expensive because it's
Yeah.
labor intensive to do
yeah,
that.
there's been a wide variety of responses to these conservation measures that have put in. I know there are districts that are in more dire straits than we are. They're actually limiting the amount of water that somebody can get in a day. You know, through
Wow.
their meter, it takes so much water, then blocks them off. But you know, we're not anywhere near there.
No, I understand.
But just pointing out that there's 405 districts reporting to the state, and probably 405 different approaches that people
Sure.
are taking, and we're all watching what everybody else is doing because you know, people get good ideas, and if we can implement them here, we will. When I met with the state board last week, some of the things I took down were some visual aids for the little dog and pony show. But you may be aware we have these little orange flags that our employees carry around, and if they become aware of a leak or a broken sprinkler, if people aren't home, we'll leave a flag there. For example, if the broken sprinkler is there, we put the flag there to let them know when they come home you have a broken sprinkler. I took those down and showed them to the panel at the state board, and when I got back, I had an email from them and said they got to talking about that after I left and thought what an easy and great idea that is, a simple idea. They asked if we could send some down to them. They were going to make a presentation at their next scheduled board meeting, so perhaps other districts could implement something like that. And that was
Cool.
something our people came up with, a real simple idea that they just thought of. And
Well, and I can tell you, as a homeowner, I would appreciate it because I'm not always watching the sprinklers as they're going off. So I may not even be aware, and I'm sure other homeowners, they aren't even aware that they have a broken sprinkler.
I think if any of us have a sprinkler system, we've all gone through that. I know I've had the same
yeah.
thing. In fact,
Yes.
you know, a neighbor came and told me one time I had a broken sprinkler. The time it comes on, I'm getting ready for work and I'm not paying attention.
Right.
But no, it's you appreciate help like that, and that's what we
absolutely.
need.
All right, we don't have a lot of time in this segment left, but you were mentioning during the last break about, was it Prop 118?
Bulletin 118.
Bulletin 118.
Department of Water Resources published Bulletin 118 back in 1980.
Now, I don't know how much we can get through of this before we go to break.
We'll
go
get
ahead.
as much as we can, then we'll continue.
Okay.
Right.
Published 118 back in 1980, and it classified the basins in California as either in overdraft or not. And at the time, it was determined Indian Wells Valley was not a high priority basin. And of course, based on the recent legislation and that DWR classification in 118, this basin was classified as medium priority, which of course meant we had 2 more additional years to come up with a groundwater management plan that got us into a sustainability condition. Friday, I received a call from a geologist at DWR, and he informed me that we knew they're going to republish that bulletin when the Groundwater Management Act came out. Almost an impossible task was given to DWR to redo that bulletin by, I think it was last January, which they couldn't do. They asked for an extension. That's what we're getting now. And I was advised Friday that in this new revision,
Hold that thought.
You hold that thought.
Right.
We'll be right back.
Keep you in
after this
suspense.
break. And so, yeah, hate to keep you in suspense, haha. And we'll be right back.
Welcome back to Ridgecrest Talk. We're in our last segment here with Mr. Don Zadiba from the Water District. You know, that's a mouthful for some reason to say your name.
Well, you're finally getting it down, though.
Yeah, I know.
It took 6 episodes.
Okay, before we went to break, we were talking about this Bulletin 118 that changed us from a moderate overdraft to
a condition of overdraft. As I said, the original Bulletin 118 came out in 1980, and then obviously we've got 30 plus years of new data.
Right.
So in consideration of the data, any reports that came out from USGS, I'm sure the Todd report factored into it, Todd Engineering report, the fact that we are in a constant state of decline in terms of well levels, the DWR has decided that, or proposed that this basin be classified as in critical overdraft.
What does that do for us?
It does a couple of things. First of all, the process will be, it's not a done deal yet. This is just a draft, and they'll present it to their board August 19th. And then I believe a week later, on August 26th, it'll go out to the public. And then there will be a 30-day comment period. It's kind of a double-edged sword. On the one hand, being a critically overdraft basin, we will likely be eligible for some funding from the state, which is a good thing.
Yes.
On the other side, of course, the sustainability plan, the groundwater sustainability plan, we now have 2 years less to prepare it. So instead of 2022, it now becomes 2020 that we would have to get that plan in place. So, but on the other hand, they would be giving us, financial support through funding to help us get there. So, as I said, it's kind of a double-edged sword.
Speaking of groundwater sustainability, just to put it in context, I kind of think of this being like, say, would you please build me a ladder to the moon? It's a virtual impossible task unless we have some way of importing water. You know, we have a basin, and even if we eliminated all agriculture, and for that matter eliminated the Navy, which of course nobody wants to do, I don't know that we would be in a position of being sustainable. By their definition, sustainable, which says you draw out no more than what goes in each year. So there must be some thought amongst the water experts, yourself included, of what we're going to do to get more water.
Well, in the interim, one thing that we can do, and we are working on, I believe I probably mentioned in previous episodes we've done, using brackish water resources that we have in the valley will extend our resources substantially. And
Okay.
But that's still coming from the same
it's still coming,
basin.
but it's more water that you can use to buy you more time to do these other things, such as getting imported water, getting the infrastructure for the imported water, those sorts of things. And with respect to the brackish water, there's some very good news, and I don't know if you've been aware of it, but Stanford University, have you heard about the study that they will be doing?
No.
No.
Stanford's been looking at evaluating a couple different technologies that will look at the interface between potable water and brackish water, and of course that's one thing we need to do to determine our brackish water resources. So through contacts that we've had, primarily Tim Parker, has worked with the Water District and is now working with the county as well, they have offered to come in at no cost to us at all, come into this basin and do a targeted pilot study evaluating a couple different geophysical techniques. And once they test those techniques, if something looks favorable, they can of course expand it to valley-wide. So, working with Stanford is a great opportunity.
Boy,
we were hoping.
Right. So of course we've turned this down, right?
Oh no. Well, there has been a little bit of a delay. We were hoping to get it done this month, but what they wanted to do was come to an area where they could have access to a large area of land without dealing with a whole lot of property owners.
Okay.
So the ideal place to do it was on the base. So there were a couple of hitches that came up, mostly on Stanford's part. They had an agreement that they needed signed that once it went to the Navy, they had no choice but to bring it to San Diego to regional, and that would of course slow it down. They've to their credit, locally they've worked around it.
Good.
We're now targeting October to do that work.
Okay.
So I haven't got a definite weekend yet, but I think it'll be towards the end of October. It'll be a 3-day study, and
Super.
we're looking forward to that. Again, a great opportunity, no cost to anybody here locally.
So they're going to use an existing well already?
Not wells. They actually do use instrumentation on the ground and just do sounding using different types of waves.
Okay.
So there's no wells, nothing like that. No disturbance to the ground. So it's very, non-destructive, if you will, type of procedure. So a great opportunity, something we're really excited about, and like I said, if it works, we can look forward possibly to partnering with Stanford to do a valley-wide study.
Terrific.
So, and this
Yeah,
is
that'd be great.
really great. So,
Yeah.
Especially if they do put us in critical overdraft and there's that state money there that you were talking about, and come up with this study and the potential of what it has.
And we are moving forward with our partners, the Navy, Searles Valley Minerals, the Water District, and COSO, towards funding the brackish water study. Again, this study with Stanford is part of factoring into this, how getting this study done. Once we have the results from Stanford, then we can determine how to go forward, and then the partnership would kick in, and we'll do the rest of the study.
In long term, the idea is to turn brackish water into potable water.
The potable water, and again, as you both point out, it's still water within the basin, but we believe there's a fairly large brackish water resource there that can buy us a lot of time.
Right.
And that's important.
And that really hasn't been counted in the past. Is
No.
So
No.
this is, quote, new water.
New water, and again, buys us some very critical time to look at other things such as imported water.
We don't have much time left, less than 30 seconds, I think, or right around it. How are we on the GSAs?
We are planning to have a public meeting probably in September. The county hosted a meeting at the Water District last week with key stakeholders to discuss how to arrange that public meeting, when to schedule it, and how to carry it out. So I think we're still targeting. I know you don't have much time, but I think the intent is to still have that formed by early next year.
And is the county the one that's building the list of the parties that should be involved?
They're not determining. I mean, the legislation itself determines
Okay.
criteria.
It's pretty clear.
Yeah.
So how are we going to represent the agricultural interests? Is that taken into
Quickly.
account?
The county represents the property owners, but there may be a role for ag somehow on an advisory committee to
Okay.
the GSA.
Okay.
As
Unfortunately,
usual,
we're out of time.
We're
Okay.
out of time. It always happens.
So join us again next week. We'll be right here Thursday night. It's Ridgecrest Talk. Good night, folks, and have a great evening.